Hello class, I have been on an emotional and deeply spiritual journey over this past year as I delved into the hellscape that was the Bravo extended universe. It started with Vanderpump Rules, and we all know how that went. And then I started slowly venturing into the world of Real Housewives, which as someone who has watched a lot of reality TV, it's honestly impressive that I've managed to go this long without watching any of it. There is so much content to catch up on, so much lore to get to know. But when I finally took the leap and started watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Real Housewives of New York City, Real Housewives of Atlanta, I realized something very crucial about these shows. They have, even without my awareness, truly been carrying internet culture and pop culture for decades. And I have just not appreciated it in the way that it deserves to be. I am telling you, you are not even aware of how many TikTok sounds and memes originate from the Real Housewives. I would say in a more just world, a more true and fair world that we currently do not have, these women would be revered as professional improv stand-up comedians. And yes, they are just as controversial and deplorable as many stand-up comedians are. I'm not saying that they're good people or that this is an ethical watch to get into, but these women argue with each other professionally, and they have got it down to such a science at this point that I have to respect it as an art form. The one Real House franchise I really wanted to watch that so many people recommended to me was the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is a relatively new show in the franchise as it only started in 2019. There were only 6 whole seasons of content for me to catch up on this time. And I just think that Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is in a league of its own. No other reality show out there has brought so much drama, crimes, and community theater level shenanigans.
Do you think I'll look inbred?
I do.
One of the most iconic moments from this series is this famed clip.
Receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots.
And what I discovered is this moment is the culmination of a great unsolved mystery, something that had been in the works for 4 entire seasons of this show. Folks, I need to tell you the story of Reality Von Tease. The Real Housewives have been taking up a lot of my brain power lately. Any amount of brain power usage is enough for me to just totally forget about planning, prepping, cooking meals for myself, which I hear in the long term is not really advised. That's why I love using today's sponsor Factor, because they deliver fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved meals straight to my door that are ready in 2 minutes. You can enjoy over 100 weekly rotating menu items from meals and salads to breakfasts and shakes. And you can customize your box to fit your nutrition needs. I always get the veggie vegan option, but they have high protein, calorie smart, low carb. This probably makes me sound incredibly boring, but I actually do love salads. I just hate having to prepare them myself. Getting a few pre-prepped for me that I could just eat whenever I wanted was great for me actually eating vegetables in a single day. Factor is also now owned by HelloFresh. I love being able to switch between the two depending really on just how much time I want to dedicate to preparing meals for myself. Right now, if you head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code NortonFB50, you get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for an entire year. That's code NortonFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. This offer is only valid for new Factor customers with the code and qualifying auto-renew subscriptions purchase. Thank you again to Factor for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. I had to bring back the PowerPoint for this one because I'm going to be throwing a lot of information at you, a lot of names. Every single detail is important, okay? Lock in. I cannot emphasize enough how important this story is to the foundation of our modern society. Like every good story, we have to start at the beginning, okay? We can't just start at season 4 when this plotline gets introduced. You need the backstory of all of these women and how we got here. First, I want to say a little bit about Real Housewives of Salt Lake City because I do think this coming from this franchise in particular is relevant in itself. When they announced that the new Real Housewives would take place in Salt Lake City, people did legitimately think that it was a joke, a sick, twisted, evil prank, because who the hell cares about Salt Lake City? What's in Salt Lake City? When you think of the 1%ers, like the elite of various cities, they conjure a very specific image. New York City, Atlanta. With Salt Lake City, you're just thinking is this going to be a bunch of Mormons? And this is pre-Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So we didn't really have the appreciation, the understanding that, my God, Mormon women can bring drama like no other. Something that may surprise a lot of you is that only one of the women on this cast is actually a Mormon, like a current practicing Mormon. There are 2 ex-Mormons. Most of the women on this cast are transplants from various places. So while this is still fundamentally a show about Salt Lake City, the women all bring a different energy because a lot of them grew up vastly different from one another. A Real Housewives franchise would truly be nothing without its cast, and what makes the cast of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City so great is that alliances between these women can flip within an episode. These women are not afraid to go outside of their friend groups at any given moment and absolutely destroy one of their other friends, which makes for great content, of course. Does it make these women great people? I would say that none of these women are a moral compass of sorts, but I do say that if you look to any sort of Real Housewife for any sort of moral guidance or representation, you just are going to set yourself up for a bad time. These are wealthy women who argue professionally for a living. It's going to attract a certain level of deplorability. That's just the nature of the job. Even though I generally would say I have some favorites within the cast, I like to think about the women of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City more as if they're on the Dance Moms pyramid every week. Some weeks we're up. Some weeks we're down. With Salt Lake City, I think it would be expected to say that what makes this show great is that it's much more authentic than a lot of the other Real Housewives franchises, which have gotten increasingly more produced over the past couple of years, just by necessity and by the fear many Real Housewives have of being the villain in the eyes of the internet. But I actually don't think that Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is particularly authentic. I think of it more as a community theater performance. There is some real drama, I think, baked into the show. A lot of it truly accidental that the franchise was able to get that filmed and documented. But this franchise in particular loves to have parties where the women have to be dressed in absurd costumes. They love to badly ADR in dialogue that clearly does not fit with what the women actually said. So that's another big disclaimer here. Of course, like any reality show, this show is edited. It's a story. We're just going to take things at its face. So let me introduce you to the women that make this franchise. First off, Mary Cosby. Mary Cosby is the owner. I think the official term is she's the first lady of a Pentecostal church. She inherited this church from her grandmother, who was one of the first people to build a religious organization specifically catered to the Black community in Salt Lake City back in the 1960s. And you may be wondering why I have written that she's married to her step-grandfather on this slide, and that's because she is. And she claims it was her grandmother's wish for that to happen. As you can imagine, a long, complicated story there. During season 2 of Salt Lake City, accusations began to come up that Mary's church was allegedly, potentially, a cult. The controversy got so extreme that Mary did not show up to the season 2 reunion, which is a big no-no in the Real Housewives franchise. So she was reportedly not asked back for season 3, but she is returning to season 4 when this story takes place. But she is only what's called a friend of Meredith. So a friend of is a very specific term in the Real Housewives world. They're regular on the show. They usually have confessionals, but they don't necessarily have their own storylines or like dedicated backstory. So she is in a lot of this story, but she also is very tangential to it. Next, we have the Wicked Witch of the West, Meredith Marks. Confession time. If there is one Real Housewife in any franchise that I genuinely see myself in, it is, I think, Meredith Marks. She graduated from Northwestern University with a law degree, but she never practiced as a lawyer. There's something about going to law school that just does psychological damage and makes you the actually final boss. There's kind of no way around it. Sometimes she is just straight up insufferable, the most dramatic woman in the world, but also often correct. To put Meredith into perspective, if you walked up to her and asked her gay son or thought daughter, she would be offended at the question and take the premise way too seriously, but also she would love that gay son and thought daughter. In fact, her actual gay son, Brooks Marks, is partially responsible for this look, and if wearing this look out in public doesn't show love and allyship, I truly don't know what does. Lisa Barlow. Proud owner of Vida Tequila. Have I ever seen Vida Tequila in a shop in my life? No, but it exists, I believe. I believe it does. Lisa Barlow does not feel like a real person to me. I just cannot believe that the combination of traits that she has exists in a person that walks on this earth. But boy, do I love to watch her.
I just felt for you.
I feel for me too.
Here's the thing about Lisa Barlow. Does she often say and do crazy, indefensible things? Sure. I do not think that Real Housewives of Salt Lake City would be what it was without Lisa Barlow. When I think about my favorite lines from this show, I'm going to tell you right now, 90% of them come from Lisa Barlow. They do. Does she have an ego? Does she refuse to apologize even when she really should? Yes. But I also think that sometimes there's a little too much on Lisa Barlow. It's interesting. All of the women think that she's a horrible, selfish, egotistical person, but they all also really want to be her friend and become very upset when they're not her friends. And then they do become her friends, and then they don't like how she is as a friend. And the cycle repeats itself over and over again. Everybody just wants to get Baja Blast with her at Taco Bell. No, that is not Carmen Sandiego behind me. That is the one and only Jen Shah, who very recently has been freed. Jen Shah introduced on Salt Lake City as having an exorbitant amount of wealth, as many of the women do. But with her, it was kind of on another level. She had an entire ski chalet. She dropped $80,000 reportedly on a party for Meredith Marks. She has an allegiance of about 10 different assistants called the Shaw Squad at any time. And any time that anyone tried to figure out what she did for a living, everyone just kind of went, something with algorithms? Internet? I don't really know, actually, and we're not going to look into this further. There is a lot to say about Jen, but I think I'm going to hold off on giving you everything, so I think it'll make more sense as we move chronologically. Oh, Heather Gay. If you're caught up on Salt Lake City, you probably know that Heather Gay is not doing too well in the fan base at the moment. She's kind of had a rough season upon several rough seasons. But when Heather starts on Salt Lake City in season 1, she is, I guess you could say, the closest thing you would have to a relatable housewife. She owns a med spa in Utah, can you imagine, called Beauty Lab and Laser. When she's starting the show, she is just getting past her divorce, although I believe in actuality their divorce was 5 years prior to the start of the show. Unclear. Healing isn't linear. She also is very open about how deeply Mormon she was throughout most of her life and is just now walking away from it, declaring herself an ex-Mormon and unpacking her religious trauma, which her talking about that publicly on a reality show is not a small thing to do in Salt Lake City, and I think a lot of people connected with her in a way that they hadn't previously with other housewives. She's funny, she's smart, she's successful, but she is very much painted as an outsider within the original Salt Lake City cast. You'll also come to learn that when it comes to game night, Heather Gay does not play. Well, actually, she does play. Production always has Heather Gay suggest a game for the other women to do that inevitably ends in the women trying to claw each other's eyes out, because the game is always, let's read the nastiest text we ever sent about the other women out loud and just see what happens. I do think that if given the opportunity, Heather Gay would play Five Finger Filet. I wouldn't rule out Russian roulette. This woman lives for the thrill. She is also, and I think this is her most noted character flaw in the early seasons of the show, a Jen Shah apologist, a close friend of Jen Shah. And then we have her cousin, Whitney Rose. I think it's a Utah accent. I assume it is. Whitney doesn't really pronounce the E sound in words. Feeling is filling. And Whitney loves a crystal. She definitely has a deck of tarot cards in her house. I just know that this woman owns a jade egg, but I can't prove it. And she is on her healing journey, which we love that for her. We love that. Because Whitney and Heather are both blonde and in Utah, they are vaguely related. I think they're second or third cousins or something like that. And maybe because Heather and Whitney are very slightly related, they are sort of the dynamic duo. Heather tends to be more of the leader, whereas Whitney falls into the follower role a lot of the time. But together, they are bad weather.
Whitney and Heather, bad weather, tornado, spin the truth, destroy.
Whitney was excommunicated from the church when she had an affair with her now husband, who is, I believe, 17 years older than her. And her husband, Justin, has spent most of his professional life as a corporate exec at various multi-level marketing companies, which again is very, very Utah. So these six are the original housewives that have been there since season 1. Then we get into Angie Katsanevis, who started as a guest on season 2, then a friend of in season 3, and is now a full-time housewife when we are in season 4. And you may not be able to tell, it's very subtle. from this picture, but Angie Katsanevas is in fact Greek. Very much so. Angie is one of the few people on this show that consistently delivers glamour. I am not really representing it here with these two pictures, but Angie has incredible style, impeccable taste. I do think that she is in fact one of the funniest women on the show. There is one time where she tells a woman who has an older husband that her husband has one foot in the grave and another on a banana peel.
1 foot in the grave and 1 on a banana peel.
I think about that quote a lot. I really do. Before you get too excited though, Angie is also, I think, just one of the most openly misogynistic women on the show. You just don't notice it because it is unfortunately really funny when she calls all of the women sluts half the time. It doesn't sound funny when I say it out loud. She was a friend initially of Jen Shah. You can see them here in what we would call, as Salt Lake City historians, the infamous WAP video. You know when you were 10 and you would make music videos with your Hannah Montana camcorder and edit it together with your friends? Jen did exactly that with WAP. And it's all of her assistants, the Shaw Squad, and her dear friend Angie, who is not her background dancer. Angie does not appreciate being called her backup dancer in this. I love that the camera quality makes it look like this video was unearthed from an ancient cave, but was in fact filmed in 2020, 2021? Angie's come a long way since the WAP video, that's for sure. Plot time. We're in season 1 of Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is a strange city. It's a very religious city, and I think even with most of the cast not being Mormon, there is just sort of a performative nature, a strive for perfection that I feel like is unique to Salt Lake City. I haven't been there, but I've sure have watched a lot of content centered around Utah over the past few years, and I think that makes me an expert. Also, what's interesting about Salt Lake City, the show in particular, is it's much more interested in social justice than you would expect from a Real Housewives franchise. And I don't mean that in the sense that these women are super progressive. They are more progressive than you would probably assume. Like, most of these women are vocally Democrat, outspoken about things like gay rights, trans rights, but the women on the show frequently encounter arguments that center around racism, homophobia, misogyny, and are much more willing to discuss how those things impact their relationships and their worldviews than a lot of other Real Housewives, which is just kind of fascinating to me. Very quickly, Jen and Mary become the stars of this franchise, and that is because when Jen's aunt was in the hospital, almost died, and needed to get both of her legs amputated, Jen met up with Mary, and Mary said that it smelled like hospital, which, if I were Jen Shah in that situation, would in fact be my final straw. Listen, you guys just don't understand though. Hospitals have a lot of negative associations, memories for Mary. You know, no one else has negative connotations with hospitals. Mary is uniquely sensitive to it, and she needed to bring it up. Jen certainly, just based on that comment alone, had reasons to not like Mary, but very quickly we see that even though Mary apologizes to Jen, there are multiple conversations where it seems like Jen is willing to move on from this incident. It keeps coming back because Jen notices that other women such as Heather, Whitney, Meredith are still talking to Mary, and that brings back those feelings that Jen had from that conversation, and she then directs her anger at whoever she saw associating with Mary. Jen really is at the center of basically all of the drama of season 1, not just because of this Mary thing, but there are several, I guess, outbursts you could call it, where she becomes very upset at some of the women on the show. She throws a glass to the ground at one point because Whitney brought up Mary at an event that Jen was throwing. When Whitney tries to sort of make up with Jen, Jen becomes upset again and famously flicks bathwater at the camera that happens to be near her. And she's just generally shown to be a very emotional, sensitive, and kind of volatile person, but I wouldn't say that it's anywhere out of the norm for like a Real Housewife. Yes, Jen is very dramatic, but this is a show where it is truly her job for her to be dramatic, so it's hard to say how much of that is her character on the show and how much of that is real just from that. And it's also a very edited show that of course is going to try and make her look as unhinged as possible. But throughout all of it, the one person who really stands by her side is Heather, no matter how upset upset Jen is at that moment, and even if Jen directs some of her anger at Heather, which is unfortunate for Heather because Jen is someone who's very sensitive to criticism, and even the slightest pushback from Heather is enough for Jen to say, you know what, actually, I don't like you, Heather. I don't like you at all. Who here doesn't trust Heather? There's one thing more embarrassing than going all out in defense for someone who's gotten into it with everybody else in the group. It's that person not even liking you at the end of it. At the season 1 reunion, even though Heather throughout the season was Jen's biggest defender, she calls out Jen, says that she's hostile. She specifically uses the word aggressive to describe Jen. Jen in the public, she certainly has a very passionate fan base of people, but I think is unquestionably the villain of season 1, and that shows at the reunion. Some things, not great things for Jen, come out on social media. The first thing though is something that she did publicly. Jen and Meredith during season 1 had a night where they were drinking together. Jen was like dancing around and sort of like spreading her legs in a weird way. Brooks, Meredith's son, was there. Brooks alleges that he saw her vagina while she was doing those dance moves, which is not great. Definitely a little embarrassing. I would say what's more embarrassing though is what follows, because Jen vehemently denies that this is the case and in fact kind of goes on a crusade against Meredith's son Brooks, who is, just like a 21-year-old guy, not a cast member really on the show. And important to the story, Brooks is gay, but at the time of season 1, he was not out even to his family. But Jen starts going on social media and in interviews saying he's never even seen a vagina. She either likes or reposts something that calls Brooks a twink. This tweet up here that says, the way I'd love for Jen to turn around and call Brooks a sissy bitch. Just a lot of homophobic rhetoric that maybe isn't being directly said by Jen, but is in some way being platformed by her. When confronted about this on season 2, Jen denies this and says that it's one of her people on social media liking all these things for her, which even if that were true, it's your account. You are responsible for what's being posted on your own account. But they're also begin to be some leaks of Jen saying particularly derogatory things about Heather. There are leaked audio recordings where Jen says that Heather is racist. She calls Heather a transphobic slur in one of these other leaked audio. And in one of these DMs, which was allegedly sent by Jen to a fan, Jen again refers to Heather as a manatee or Shrek. Jen denies that this specific screenshot is real. The audio is harder to deny. Heather questions her specifically about the racist comment. Jen says, well, I said you were racist, but I took that thing down within 5 minutes. Heather interprets this as Jen put out there that Heather is racist out of anger rather than genuine concern that Heather is actually racist. Racism is bad, but being accused of being a racist, God forbid. But larger takeaway is that all of these things coming from social media seem to suggest that maybe Jen is also perhaps not a very nice person off screen or off camera, and maybe there is some truth to her behavior in season 1 being authentic to her. But it gets a lot worse than that. This is Koa, who is a Polynesian fashion designer and worked with Jen over the period of, I think, about a year to design various looks, including the look that she wore on the season 1 reunion. But eventually they cease having a working relationship. Jen alleges that she bought a lot of materials or paid for a lot of materials for Koa to make a dress for her, and that he never followed through on his end of the bargain, which is why they no longer work together. Koa, on the other hand, claims it was the other way around. He did work on a dress for Jen that he was not ultimately paid for, but he goes a step further and also says behind the scenes Jen was frequently verbally abusive to him. And this appears to be corroborated when footage leaks online of what appears to be Jen just screaming, cursing, and throwing things at what seems to be Koa and possibly other employees off screen. This clip is bad. Koa vehemently denies that he was the source of this leaking online, that he has no idea where this is coming from. The footage is strange because the way the camera is placed, it doesn't seem like it's someone sort of covertly recording on their phone, like it's not handheld, it's stationary. There are a lot of questions as to where the specific footage came from, but it quickly spreads everywhere. When Lisa Barlow just brings up that this footage exists, not even to accuse her of anything, Jen becomes very, very upset at Lisa for even bringing this up. Like, this is clearly a very sensitive subject for Jen. And Lisa is so taken aback by Jen's reaction that she completely drops the subject. Even though it feels like on any other franchise of the show, this would be a major source of drama, it's not really spoken of beyond that scene. And in fact, I don't think the footage itself was actually shown on the show, and Koa's name was censored. But suffice to say, Jen publicly does not seem to be a particularly great person. Folks, if you're gonna watch a single episode of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, I beg of you to watch season 2, episode 10, when Homeland Security and NYPD comes after Jen Shah while they're filming. In short, Jen gets a call from who she says is her husband, Sharif. Her demeanor immediately shifts. You can see she's looking right at the camera. Very quickly, she asks Whitney to take off her microphone pack so that people can't pick up audio of what she's saying. She tells everybody on the bus, they are parked outside of Heather's business, Beauty Lab and Laser. She tells all of them that Sharif has internal bleeding and that she needs to go to the hospital right away to see him. And all the women are like, of course, do you need us to go with you? Some time passes. People in full-on bulletproof vests, guns, SWAT gear show up and say that they're looking for Jen Shah. Jen isn't answering her phone. They don't know where she is. They also don't know what she's done or what this is about, because all the police are saying to them is they just want to talk to her and make sure she's okay. Eventually, the police ping her location and arrest her on the side of the road before bringing her in on charges of wire fraud and money laundering in the Southern District of New York, which is not a jurisdiction you want to be charged with anything. Let me just tell you that. Before Jen got arrested, the women were supposed to be driving from Salt Lake City to Vail, Colorado. Meredith and Mary are not on the Sprinter van that would have taken them there. They've flown ahead early to like the Airbnb or whatever they're staying at. Meanwhile, the other 4 women are stuck on their phones in a 6-hour drive seeing all the news roll in about Jen. Lisa Barlow is calling all 6 of her lawyers that she has on payroll, which is, normal thing to do. They get there. Meredith, most unbothered woman you've ever seen, sudsing it up in the bathtub. Because the thing is, Meredith has had her suspicions that something was afoot for quite some time. Meredith reveals that around the time that Brooks was getting harassed on social media, they were receiving concerning anonymous text messages that were threatening in nature. And actually, some of the other women note that they also got texts from anonymous numbers. And they note that multiple of these text messages use the word because, but they spell it BCUZ, which they say is the way that Jen would also spell it in text messages. Meredith hires a private investigator to figure out who is behind these text messages. And she doesn't say directly because she's very much has lawyer brain, but she heavily implies that the private investigator is certain that Jen was behind those text messages that were harassing her and her family. So, understandably, does not have a high opinion of Jen. But she also hints that her private investigator may have also raised some questions about Jen's financial status. And all of the women who are in the Sprinter van, Heather, Whitney, and Lisa, are very perplexed and deeply concerned with who told the FBI that Jen was going to be at Beauty Lab and Laser that morning, because they were the only ones who knew. This is an exhausting plotline because the police were able to track Jen Shah down when she was driving away, like fleeing the scene. Also, it's clearly not just these 6 women who knew where Jen was going to be. All of their family members, I'm sure they told friends. This wasn't a secret that they were going to Beauty Lab and Laser. Also, all of production would have known. I would imagine upwards of 50 people knew that Jen was going to be at Beauty Lab and Laser. Bad weather, Heather and Whitney are immediately suspicious of Meredith, Mary, or Lisa for reporting Jen to the FBI, which even if they did, she's accused of defrauding elderly people. I'm not particularly concerned with who reported her, but Heather is. Heather especially is. It seems like all of the women, once they're at the Airbnb together, come to the conclusion that they're not going to see Jen again, even though Jen is very obviously going to post bail, because they all start coming forward with things that they thought were suspicious about Jen that they haven't vocalized before. Meredith also owns a local boutique. Meredith tells a story where Jen and her shop Shaw squad came into her store one day. Jen bought a couple $100 worth of items, but also one of her assistants allegedly took a clutch out of the store without paying for it. Meredith's employee called and asked Jen's team to return the clutch, and they did, but Meredith felt a certain type of way about it because she believed that this person stayed in Jen's employment after this incident happened. The other women also threw out the possibility that Jen may have been having an affair based on some of the things they had observed. Needless to say, they are all kind of coming to the conclusion that Jen maybe is not the person that they thought that they knew. Meanwhile, Jen is starting a movement. Jen, the political activist, an activist for herself, hashtag Free Jen Shaw. Now, what is Free Jen Shaw all about? It is about supporting and upholding the Constitution.
Free Jen Shaw, in its essence, means you're upholding the Constitution.
Her team very tastefully puts out these ugly ass Teespring shirts, and I believe there are hoodies as well, that say not guilty, hashtag Free Jen Shaw, available for purchase on her website. Clearly these are accusations that Jen is taking very seriously, but then Jen posts bail. And she's back. And she is immediately very upset towards Lisa in particular because Jen gets a new phone number after all this happens, and she texts all of the women, hey, would you like to meet up? Would love to explain what happened and I just need your support. And the only woman who texts her back of the group is Heather. Jen is surprised by that because Heather and her obviously were not getting along earlier on. But Heather seems to not only fully believe Jen's version of events, that she is completely innocent, she is fully in support of Jen. Lisa, on the other hand, has some hesitations about reconnecting with Jen, which I honestly don't think is unreasonable. But obviously Jen's gonna have her own feelings about that. They actively brought like a team of 20 people to draw guns on her teenage child. Jen is not a person who's easy to sympathize with, but you're not gonna catch me out here being pro-police. This is obviously a very low point in her life where she wants friends who are there to support her. This does go to an extreme where her and Lisa Barlow almost get into a physical fight in another Sprinter van because for some reason they are all willing to get back into a Sprinter van after what just happened. They need to be separated by production. Jen has a conversation with Mary where Mary says, I pray to God that you're guilty. I mean innocent.
I pray to God you're guilty. You're innocent.
Glorious, beautiful, no notes. And Jen hears, mostly through Heather, but through the other women, that Meredith was acting suspicious and may have been the one to tip off the federal agents after her, which this whole thing is kind of just detached from reality because Jen sort of makes it out to be that she's innocent, right? So this whole investigation has to be a scam conspiracy of people out to get her. And she believes that this was all instigated and started by Meredith Marks, who did not previously have beef with Jen until maybe 6 months ago. The federal government simply does not act that fast in making arrests of people. For a huge team of federal agents to show up after Jen, this has to be an investigation that was going on for years. We do later get actual confirmation that she had been under some level of scrutiny by the government since 2012, but really since 2016 in earnest. The idea that this all comes down to one of the other housewives snitching on her, it's just kind of absurd. And again, even if they did, in no way does snitching on someone compare to defrauding the elderly, right? Okay, so now this may seem like I'm taking a major diversion, and I am, but walk with me here, okay? Because this is relevant. Lisa Barlow, it's kind of questionable how wealthy she is because she purports to be very, very wealthy. She says that she gets professional glam done every single day, even when she's just staying in her own house. Lisa claims to have a lot of very, very successful businesses, that she doesn't live like the rest of the women, that they don't understand the lifestyle that she has, which seems kind of impossible just based on the event planning she does once a year with Sundance Film Festival and her most prominent company, which is Vita Tequila, which is a relatively small liquor company. In Utah, you know, there's not a huge market for that. Meredith and Lisa, prior to the show, I think were the only two genuinely close friends of the group, but Meredith and Lisa are kind of in a strange place in season 2 because Meredith becomes friends with Whitney, and Whitney and Heather Bad Weather, neither of them like Lisa Barlow. Whitney has a conversation with Meredith Marks in which Meredith says, you know, I've heard rumors that Lisa is possibly having an affair, but also she's heard a really crazy rumor that she may be involved involved in said affair specifically to better her business Vita Tequila. Meredith, importantly, is like, now this rumor sounds crazy to me. I don't believe this rumor. There's literally no evidence for it. But Whitney says, well, it's funny that you say that, Meredith, because I have heard the exact same rumor. And the exact same rumor becomes Whitney has heard that that Lisa Barlow was doing sexual favors in order to get courtside ticket for the Utah Jazz basketball team. Is that true? One of the greatest unsolved mysteries of our generation, I tell you. Whitney is very insistent that Meredith also believed this rumor, also talked about this rumor with her. Understandably, Lisa is not a big fan of Meredith because that is just a crazy accusation for your friend to make about you, especially behind your back. And she doesn't have the benefit of watching the footage between Whitney and Meredith, where Meredith seemed to really not believe in or engage with this rumor in particular. But also, Meredith gets an anonymous DM from someone with an SEC filing made by Lisa and John regarding one of their other smaller tequila companies. In the SEC filing, it showed that not only do Lisa and John have some loans, some debts, as it were, but they also needed to crowdfund or get investor funding of $25,000 to launch this tequila brand. So when Meredith gets this DM, she brings up to the rest of the group, well, if Lisa's so rich like she claims to be, why does she need to fundraise $25,000 to get her business going? Like, that seems like a pretty small amount of money if you can get courtside Utah Jazz tickets whenever you want. As far as I know, the only victim of Lisa acting like maybe she's wealthier than she is Lisa. Lisa, even more incensed and offended by this bringing up of the SEC filing. She goes into a room, her microphone is still on, and it catches Lisa saying, Meredith can go f*** herself. I'm done with her, because I'm not a and I don't cheat on my husband. Her and her dumb f***ing family that poses. Why don't you own a house? Oh wait, you can't, because your husband changes jobs every 5 minutes? Fake Meredith is a piece of you. That f***ing piece of garbage. I f***ing hate her. She's half of New York. She can go f*** herself. Could Shakespeare write this? I don't think that he could. And even though Lisa didn't intend for Meredith to find out that she said this, this is kind of the nail in the coffin between Meredith and Lisa's long-standing friendship for quite a while. We then get to the season 2 reunion between Jen getting arrested and the women openly speaking about how they were always suspicious about Jen and how Jen maybe isn't such a great person. And now everyone, including even Meredith, who was sort of the biggest proponent of Jen being a terrible person, they've all come around and they're all kind of like, oh, yeah, Jen says she's innocent, so I guess she's innocent. Other than Heather, the rest of them aren't really like defending that point, but they're also not going out of their way to condemn Jen. This does get a lot of condemnation from fans at the time because Jen is being accused of doing something pretty awful, and if you're just watching the reunion, it seems like none of the women really care either way that happened. I do understand people's frustration that no one really questions Jen or even really holds her feet to the fire about any of these accusations. I can also kind of understand that when you're working with someone who is already in a down place, probably definitely going to federal prison for several years, already the villain in the public eye. Maybe it kind of feels too much like kicking someone when they're down to also voice that you condemn their behavior. Maybe because Jen is a very emotional, sensitive person, they don't want to do anything that's going to pick a fight with Jen in particular. But even though the premise of this show is these women all being friends, they are co-workers at the end of the day. When all of these women signed up to be on The Real Housewives, they could not have anticipated that one of their co-workers was going to get accused of a crime federally, right? I just think none of them were really prepared to emotionally process what's going on. Like, I kind of understand where they're coming from, even though it does feel like one of them should have spoken up at the time about their actual feelings. Then we get into season 3, which is a weird season of this show because Jen is still awaiting her trial. It gets pushed back several times. That does feel like a much more pressing, real, tangible thing than any of the actual drama that is happening during season 3, but still some things happen that are important to the story of Reality Von Teese. This is Angie Harrington. Earlier I told y'all about a different Angie, Blonde Angie. If you know Demi from Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, this is her husband Brett's ex-wife, but she is now married to this guy. For reasons we don't have time to get into, Angie Harrington and Lisa have beef. Angie's husband, at his big old age of 52, makes a Finsta account, which he calls Shaw Exposed, and even though the name is called Shaw Exposed, He appears to only use this account specifically to make trolling comments towards Lisa Barlow. He claims that he made this account because him and Angie were receiving a lot of troll comments from what they believe to be burner accounts. Meredith suggests that she has evidence that she does not show that Lisa is behind the troll accounts that were harassing Angie. So even though this man making a Finsta account in his big age is, embarrassing, at least he's admitting to it, according to Meredith. Jen is also very upset, honestly more upset than Lisa is about the existence of this account, because she says that this account is disrespecting the Shaw name, which I would argue that Jen was doing that on her own at the time, but there you go. Then there's the black eye incident, which is to this day one of the strangest things I think I've seen on reality TV. All of the housewives are on a girls' trip. It starts off bad. Jen pours a drink on Angie's head, even though Angie is supposed to be one of her few friends. There's one night where Jen and Heather and a few of the other girls get really, really drunk, but Heather and Jen in particular are like blackout drunk. The women are all hanging out until around 4 in the morning. When they wake up the next morning, Heather has, as you can see, a brutal black eye, but she also has scratches up around her arms. All of the women are very confused by this because they just saw Heather not that long ago and she looked like she was completely fine at the time. But what makes this really strange is Heather claims that she does not know who gave her this black eye. And there is no footage captured by the camera crew because they had all left by the time this incident occurred. But Heather is acting sort of strange about the incident because even though she keeps saying that she doesn't remember or she has no clue who did this to her, she'll then contradict herself by saying, oh, I didn't say I don't remember. I just said I'm not going to say who did it. Or saying, if someone wanted to come forward and say that they did it, that would be really helpful. Like she's kind of hinting that she does know, but she doesn't want to be the one to say it. She needs the person who did it to be the one to actually say it, which is very confusing for all of the women who have no context as to what's going on. Because we have such little information about this black eye, there is a lot of speculation amongst the fan base as to how this would have happened. Some people speculate that Heather's black eye, it being as severe as it is here, maybe didn't even happen that night before and happened at a different time because it would take longer for it to swell up like that. I have no idea if that's true or not. There is a full investigation done by the production company, which is not able to find anything. But Heather, in one of her interviews, makes a joke. It is a joke. It's not a good joke. She jokes that maybe someone in production did this to her and she doesn't remember, which is a very serious thing to float out there. It is a kind of an open secret that Heather is not in good standing with the production company going into season 4. And then the day before she was set to go to trial, Jen Shah pleads guilty. This is the first time, according to any of the women and her castmates, that Jen publicly acknowledged any sort of wrongdoing. And even then, Heather says that she got a call from Jen saying, listen, I need to plead guilty so that my family can be okay. Like she's still not acknowledging that she may have actually done anything wrong. But this really rattles Heather in particular because Heather just believed Jen when Jen said that she was innocent. And Heather says that it has a lot to do with her growing up Mormon, that she sort of grew up in a cult that led her to believe a lot of crazy things, and just that she is someone who can still be persuaded by somebody, that she is prone to wanting to believe people because of her upbringing. Turning to the black eye, a lot of people suspect that Jen was the one who gave it to her, and they suspect that the reason that Heather doesn't say who gave it to her is because she didn't want to risk it interfering with Jen's trial or her sentencing prospects. But again, there's kind of no way to prove because the only person who knows and who maybe doesn't even remember is Heather. Season 4, Jen Shah is in prison with Elizabeth Holmes, and we get a brand new housewife, Monica Garcia. Monica is Jen's former assistant. According to Monica, just months before Jen was arrested, Jen sat Monica down and said, you want to make 6 figures? Let me tell you, blah, 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 blah. And basically, Jen explained to Monica how her illegal scheme worked. Monica then contacted a friend in the Secret Service. Her friend in the Secret Service told her, you got to get out of there, girl. Monica says that she would have been a witness at Jen's trial, but because Jen pled guilty, there wasn't a trial, so she wasn't a witness. She also knew Angie because Angie was close friends with Jen. She briefly met Lisa, although Lisa importantly notes that she didn't recognize Monica because Monica used to be blonde. A blonde in Utah? Unheard of, I know. Monica is also very interesting because she just point blank lives in a very different world from the other housewives on this show. She's a single parent to to 4 girls. She lives in a 1,500 square foot house, like a normal house. And one of the things she constantly mentions is her insecurity around being with these very wealthy women where they have these perfect lives, these fancy things. And she tells the story to her mom tearfully about her going to Louis Vuitton and buying a bag.
And I went into the Louis Vuitton store. Yeah. And I bought a bag.
I understand what she's getting at there, but that is objectively just a really funny clip. Also, Monica had an affair with her brother-in-law, divorced her husband, remarried her husband, and is going through a second divorce now. And she, importantly, has a very tenuous, toxic relationship with her mother. Her mother, Linda, is also heavily featured on this season. It is apparent watching their interactions why they do not have a particularly great relationship. Monica talks about a time when she was 12 years old where her mom just dropped her off in Pennsylvania with family friends so that she could pursue her own career in entertainment in New York City. She says that when she first auditioned to be a Real Housewife, her mom prayed that if Monica didn't get the job, that she would get it herself. Her mom would make her hide in the trunk while her mom made out with her boyfriend in the car. And her mom, to that crazy accusation, just says, that was one time. It is genuinely heartbreaking to see their interactions, and I think very familiar to a lot of people who watch this show. Going into this, Monica feels very similar to how Heather Gay came into the show. She is the relatable housewife, but I think she is relatable in a way that's vastly different to how Heather is. I think to a lot of people, it comes across as much more authentic from what people see on the show. Gays, listen up. Trixie Mattel is here. Never let them know your last move. I feel like I don't have to explain who Trixie Mattel is. Famed drag queen, rich.
I mean, Trixie Mattel is so rich now. She is so rich.
In Palm Springs, she has the Trixie Motel, her boutique motel that she runs with her now ex-partner David. The housewives are going on a girls' trip to stay at the Trixie Motel. Mary re-enters the picture. She's back in season 4 as a friend of. She is not looking forward to this because Trixie Motel doesn't even carry 2003 Dom Perignon. A classless, godless place, the Trixie Motel. Meredith invites all of the women, but she does not invite Angie Katsanevas. I know I said that her and Lisa had beef. They've sort of made up, not really. They're kind of working on their friendship. Angie Katsanevas was kind of in the middle of the Meredith-Lisa beef because Meredith doesn't know Angie like that. She's much less forgiving of Angie than she is of Lisa, so she purposely does not invite Angie to this girls' trip. But Whitney loves to point out, wants to emphasize that she was friends with Trixie Mattel before Meredith Marks was. I love the concept of straight women fighting over who's a bigger fan of Trixie Mattel. The world is healing. Whitney takes Angie as her guest and flies out early to hang out with Trixie Mattel before the rest of the group gets there. And I love Trixie Mattel in this interaction because all Trixie does is repeat back the words that Whitney and Angie say to her.
She just wasn't invited, and I wasn't told I
It's
couldn't
not a bad
bring
thing.
this.
She just wasn't invited.
That's Trixie reading them to filth. But of course, Meredith is not too happy that Angie Katsanevas is at the Trixie Motel. This trip is already off to a bad start because when Lisa was in the bathroom, she lost her $60,000 ring. Did I mention that it's $60,000? Because it's $60,000 and it's sentimental, more importantly. It's also $60,000. I will be the first to say that there's definitely a lot of ADR, a lot of dubbing in of Lisa emphasizing that it's $60,000, but she does mention it, several times. And Monica helps Lisa look for this damn $60,000 ring for like 45 minutes. But then as soon as they get into the limo, Lisa is immediately calling up her jeweler that she has on speed dial to see if she can get a replacement for the $60,000 ring. Monica, just being a normal middle-class person who has spent 45 minutes in an airport bathroom digging through like the tampon box for this damn ring, is a little bit peeved at the theatrics around this $60,000 ring. And she tells Lisa, listen, Monica is right, that it's kind of obnoxious that Lisa is moaning about losing this $60,000 ring. Very much champagne problems, right? But as a viewer of this show, I don't really care. And in fact, I kind of love how out of touch these women are. They're not middle class. They're not relatable to the middle class. And that's part of what makes them entertaining. Monica really latches onto this and keeps telling Lisa that she is not relatable to the middle class, which Lisa responds with, of course I'm relatable to the middle class. Plenty of middle class people own $60,000 rings. See, this is what's great about them being so out of touch. Do we want to get rid of this? No. Then escalates to Monica then calling Lisa a piece of in Portuguese, which I do think is just a touch intense for what this drama is coming from. Speaking of Lisa being very relatable to the middle class, Whitney wants everybody to do a drag competition judged by, of course, Trixie Mattel. So everybody has to do their own drag makeup and present themselves. Lisa is very upset about this because she paid several $1,000s for her glam team to come out and do her makeup, and she has glam in Monaco. She has glam in Saint-Tropez. She has to have glam everywhere. I love that she uses Monaco and Saint-Tropez as the examples, because the point that she's trying to make is that she'll wear glam everywhere, even if it's not an exciting place. But then she only names the most glamorous locations that she can think of. But she is crying in tears at the possibility of having to do her own makeup and look silly because they're doing drag and she doesn't want to look silly. Monica, on the other hand, is not messing around. She is taking this opportunity to impress Trixie Mattel very seriously. And, you know, I have to respect it. I really do. But this is just another instance in Monica's mind of Lisa being shallow, superficial, and very materialistic, which, yes, Lisa is materialistic, but also literally all of these women are materialistic. It's the Real Housewives. Angie, as I mentioned, does not get along with Meredith and has basically invited herself to this trip that Meredith specifically did not invite her to. She keeps making digs at Meredith, which I think is already pushing it considering she wasn't invited in the first place. Angie makes accusations at dinner that Meredith's business, wait for it, aren't successful. I know, it's a horrible thing to even contemplate. She also says that Meredith's husband sucks, but you know what? Honestly, Seth does kind of suck. To which Meredith says, "You can leave." Then asks a waiter at this restaurant to escort Angie off the premises. Afterwards, she speaks to Lisa. I cannot believe her. You want to talk about her? You want to talk about the husbands, the rumors, and the nastiness I hear about her? Importantly, Meredith does not say what the rumors or the nastiness are about Angie's husband. But I think given the context that Angie was accusing Meredith of having bad businesses, that it's probably related to the businesses that Angie and her husband, Sean, share. But that's just me speculating, because Meredith importantly never says, because she always needs to have plausible deniability of what she's saying. So just what are the rumors and the nastiness? Monica tells Angie and Whitney, oh, I know what Meredith was going to say. I know what the rumor and the nastiness is. She says the rumor is that Angie's husband, Sean, is gay and hooking up with a bunch of men in Salt Lake City, and all the men are bragging about their intimacy all over town, and it's an open secret. Like, everybody apparently knows this about Angie's husband. Seemingly, this rumor just comes from the fact that Angie's husband owns a hair salon, which is the equivalent of being gay in Salt Lake City. But importantly, when Monica tells Angie that this is the rumor, Monica makes it seem like she's heard directly from Meredith that Meredith is going around saying that, which we have no proof that that is actually the case. And in fact, later on, Monica says that she actually didn't hear that rumor from Meredith at all. She just heard it around Salt Lake City. But because Angie thinks that Meredith is the one who said this originally, Angie turns around on Meredith and says, the only one spreading their legs outside their marriage is you, honey. The nastiness gets real nasty. It really does. Monica is also still beefing with Lisa about Lisa being unrelatable and materialistic. Monica specifically mentions a story where Lisa was bragging about being on a private jet with Snoop Dogg. Lisa says, wait, I've never told you anything about a private jet and Snoop Dogg. From that moment on, Lisa is suspicious of Monica, does not trust her intentions. Angie then hosts an Easter celebration at her house, and it's like a whole family thing. Like, everyone's inviting their children, people's parents are there, Monica's parent is there. Angie sort of realizes that even if Monica wasn't the one who originally said it, it still wasn't cool for Monica to say this rumor about Sean being gay on national television. Because even if she wasn't spreading the rumor, she has now definitely platformed it when Meredith hadn't said anything on TV at all. Angie sits down with Monica and she's like, I don't like that you perpetuated this rumor, even if your intentions were just to tell me. But this conversation starts to get hostile. Linda, Monica's mom, walks in on this conversation and is basically like parenting both of them. Listen, you're both strong, beautiful women. Don't fight right now. And Monica is like, go away. This is not your argument. This is weird. Linda says, Monica, your kids are here. Don't fight in front of your kids. And Monica and Linda start basically fighting in front of everybody else. You can see that they have a very uncomfortable relationship dynamic. It's just kind of a hard watch all around. Angie and Monica do make up after this because they're able to both connect over them not really having great relationships with their moms. But if you don't know the history or the dynamic between Monica and Linda, you kind of only see Monica Monica seemingly going after her mom publicly. Monica explains her family history to Heather, Whitney, and Meredith. She mentions that because the car that she has, the loan was taken out in her mom's name, even though Monica makes the payments, whenever Linda gets upset, she will take the car away from Monica as sort of a manipulation tactic, which is obviously not cool. Actually, a lot of the women on this cast don't have a relationship or a good relationship with their mom, so they very much connect to her on this level. Monica explains that yes, her mom can be very charming and very nice, personable when you talk to her, but so is Ted Bundy, basically just saying that it's a manipulation tactic. Whitney goes back to Lisa and says, listen, I know that incident at Easter was weird. Maybe Monica didn't look that great in that moment, but I've talked to her and it does seem like Monica genuinely is in an abusive relationship with her mom. Lisa says, I love when things are conveniently abusive. Hey, don't say that. Not a nice thing to say. On one hand, Lisa in this conversation is saying, listen, her relationship with her mom isn't an excuse to treat other people poorly, which she's treated me and Angie poorly. But also she kind of seemed to imply in this conversation that she does not believe what Monica is saying about her own mother, which is not a kind thing to imply. Lisa also gets her serial killers confused because she's like, Monica compared her mom to someone who does stuff with dead bodies and eats people. She is thinking of Jeffrey Dahmer when she says that, not Ted Bundy. So that metaphor is also lost on Lisa, unfortunately. Whitney, always the middleman, goes back and tells Monica basically that Lisa said that she doesn't believe Monica's story of abuse, which, hey, I think that's a reasonable thing to get upset about. Monica and Lisa get into it both at Whitney's child's birthday party and also at Whitney's jewelry launch during the sound bath. What is supposed to be a moment of peace and serenity and good vibrations, Monica and Lisa are just angry, whisper, yelling at each other. Once again, while maybe both of them have a point in this conversation at some point, it gets nasty and personal really quick. Like Lisa says something along the lines of, no wonder no one wants to be your mom to Monica. Like, genuinely unhinged thing to say. They both just start coming for each other's looks, which, hey, has nothing to do with the conversation at hand. And ultimately, it's just a deep betrayal to Whitney, who was trying to have a sound bath. They love a costumed event on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. It is a staple. This time, they have all the women dressed up like pioneers and doing pioneer activities like making paper dolls and churning butter, which is a task that Meredith in particular takes very seriously. Heather wants to play a game, which can only end in death and destruction. Heather poses the question, if there was too much weight on our wagon and you had to kick one of the other women off of the wagon, who would you kick off? Lisa Barlow, why don't you start off? Lisa says, well, I'm an ally to women, so I'm going to kick off the person who's nastiest to women, and that's Monica. Yes, that's a petty thing to say, but I think we also could have easily let that go and continued on with this fun and merry game that Heather had planned for everyone, but that's not what happens. Monica again starts coming for Lisa's looks in a way that feels really mean-spirited, especially about her age, which the other women don't like. One, because it's just kind of a mean thing to do, but also they're the same age as Lisa. But Monica brings back up Lisa's comments about Linda, her mom. Monica does seem to get genuinely emotional and defeated and kind of shuts down in this moment. And this feels like a slight fourth wall break for a lot of the women because, yes, they all argue all the time, but I kind of get the sense that they were surprised at how seemingly real this felt to Monica, because Lisa then goes over and apologizes to Monica, and Monica is too upset to announce that they're going to Bermuda. The women are genuinely surprised by this reaction, and Heather says, where's Monica? Where's the Monica that I know? And Monica says, y'all killed her. She's dead. Like Taylor Swift said. I don't think any of the women get the reference because the look of genuine concern on their face. But anyways, the women are all going to Bermuda, which is a very exciting trip because up until this point, because Jen had a trial upcoming, Jen could not leave the country, so they could not go on a girls' trip outside of the country either. This is their first time getting to do a big excursion since their show has really blown up. But they're also specifically going to Bermuda because Monica's Portuguese side of her family, her mom's side of her family, built up Bermuda, which feels like maybe a nice way to say that they colonized it. I don't really know. Monica says that she grew up going to Bermuda as a child. This would be an opportunity to reconnect with some of her family that isn't her mom. Like, she doesn't have a lot of extended family that she can talk to. So this is a very exciting moment for her. The women are all excited for her. They do a big birthday brunch for her. They make her queen for the day. And it's all going great. Everybody's having having a good time, guffawing, guffooing. But then Monica gets a text from her family members saying that actually they don't want to meet up with her at all. Monica suspects that this was because her mom, Linda, was upset that she couldn't also go on this trip and forbade the rest of her family from speaking to her. Lisa, the one who really had not been getting along with Monica up until this point, is the one who really comforts her the most in this moment, which feels very strange and alien to me because Lisa is not really the one to comfort people. There's also some weird bits of random tension. Monica and Heather start beefing, which up until this point had not happened at all. Monica claims that Heather is very weird about talking about her sex life, and that is a bad thing in itself. Maybe Heather is. I don't really see why that matters. It also specifically comes up because Heather refuses to answer the question of whether her adult daughter has had sex. Heather is like, my daughter's sex life is not for reality TV to consume. And Monica's like, oh my God, she's so repressed, blah, 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 blah. There is building tension between Heather and Monica all of a sudden on this trip. Now that Monica and Lisa have made up after this family thing, Monica now trusts Lisa enough to tell her about some rumors and nastiness she discussed with Meredith. According to Monica, one time off camera, Monica and Meredith were hanging out in a street in Salt Lake City. Meredith said, oh, it's funny. I've heard actually from a friend that a lot of the businesses that are on this street are actually affiliated with the Greek mafia. To which Monica said, well, I only know one Greek person in my life. Do you think that Angie is a member of the Greek mafia? To which Meredith supposedly replied, I don't know. According to Monica, they then discuss some of the shady business dealings they think they've heard about Angie. And a few days later, Monica gets a call from Meredith. Meredith asks, hey, did you just get a random anonymous DM about Angie? Because I just did. Monica checks her DMs and sees that she has gotten an anonymous message, which importantly does not accuse Angie of being in the Greek mafia whatsoever. It does, however, say that Angie and her husband are behind on their taxes and that they've declared bankruptcy, that they're having financial issues, and that they are not as wealthy as they appear to be. But somehow this equates to her also being in the Greek mafia. I don't really know how the two are related. Monica mentions that she found this DM suspicious because she wouldn't have even known it was there unless Meredith called her and asked her. Why would Meredith even be looking through these random DMs? Or why would she call me and assume I also got it? And Lisa is like, well, this reminds me of the DMs she got about my SEC filings. This to me feels like classic Meredith Marks, and I'm deeply suspicious of her. Basically, all of the women turn on Meredith and are convinced that Meredith has been going around accusing Angie of being in the Greek mafia and also using fake burner accounts to DM other wives the rumors and nastiness she hears about the women that she doesn't like. The only evidence they have for this truly is Monica's word. Heather in particular is confused because she feels like Meredith isn't acting sufficiently outraged at this accusation when Meredith is just replying calmly like, I didn't say that, Monica. Actually, the reason I called you about the DM was because the DM mentioned everything that you had told me about Angie. I thought that maybe you had also gotten this DM and that's why you were talking about that stuff with me. But take it back a little bit. Meredith hired a private investigator against Jen, and for some reason people were convinced that Meredith was the one who reported Jen to the FBI. Whitney and Meredith had a falling out because Meredith didn't stand by Whitney's side when she made that crazy Utah Jazz accusation, even though Meredith was also kind of participating in that gossip. Then there were the anonymous DMs sent to Meredith about Lisa's business, which people accused Meredith of being behind. Then the rumors and the nastiness about Angie's husband. People believe that Meredith was spreading this deeply homophobic rumor. The accusation that Meredith is making burner accounts to spread gossip about other people. To the other women with the beliefs that they have at the time, that does not seem so far out of the realm of possibility. And it's kind of the culmination of years of frustration that these women have with Meredith. I think unfairly, but you know, who's to say? That is until Heather gets a fateful phone call. Now, importantly, we do not know what is in this phone call, but we do know that she chases production out of the room the second that she gets it, and she is screaming, crying, shaking, literally throwing up at what she has just heard. Heather gathers all of the women at the beach. I just think that this moment at the beach was too important. You had to see it despite the Bravo copyright rules, so I did in fact recreate this scene for your viewing pleasure.
Are you okay?
Just give me a minute. Wait till everyone's here. I have something really important I need to tell you. I got your text. What's going on? Thanks for meeting me. Hey, yeah, what's up? Are you okay? Let's wait for Meredith.
Hey guys.
Hi, thanks for coming.
What is going on?
I'm nervous.
I know, I'm shaking.
Yeah, me too. So am I. There's something I need to tell you guys. Okay. It's big and it's not good. What is it? You're gonna cry. You know, Heather, we've come a long way, us four. We have. And Monica, she's not our friend. Okay. She's someone that has schemed and worked to infiltrate this friend group. Okay, what's happening? And the name that you all know her as, the woman whose birthday we celebrated, the woman we've been trying to champion and support and defend. Is Reality Von Teese. No. You are kidding me.
Wait, how did you find this out?
How did you find this out?
That account has annihilated all of us.
All of us. Just pull it up on your phone.
Horrible.
Released all the videos about Jen. That was Monica that recorded them. All those audio recordings and behind the scenes secrets, things that have hurt and affected our lives, we fought over for years, were all posted, curated, and spread by her. Wow. I want to confront her at dinner tonight. And I want you guys to back me up. Okay.
I
have your back.
I'm freaking out. I am so tired of people trying to hurt us. This is so f***ed up.
In summary, Heather revealed that Monica is behind a gossip account called Reality Von Teese. That account leaked the audio of Jen berating Koa originally. It also leaked the audio and text messages of Jen calling Heather the Teesler, a manatee, Shrek, all of those horrible things. And it's actually important to say that even though the Reality Von Teese account leaked text messages of Jen calling Heather those gross names, Heather frames it as Reality Von Teese was calling me those names. And when they put up the screenshots of the text that she's referring to, the editing doesn't make it clear necessarily that it's just reposting what Jen said. But they also say that that account has specifically posted things about all of these women. For Whitney, they specifically accuse her of being a swinger, which again, in Salt Lake City, Utah, an accusation is so unheard of. So Heather is painting this to the women at the beach as this is an account that has bullied all of us for years, and I am going to confront her at the beach tonight, and I need all of you to help me. They all go down to the dinner. Angie just has no fucking clue what's going on because they didn't invite her to the beach thing. Anyways, Heather is ready to play another game. She has haunted paper dolls of each of the women. And the rules of this game is each of them have a random doll in front of them. Heather has Meredith's doll, and she is supposed to ask a question to Meredith, and Meredith has to clarify that. And Heather, importantly in this conversation with Meredith, is like, yeah, we all didn't believe you about this DM situation. Monica, why is it that we believed you and not her? And Monica says, well, you know, I had everything. I had the receipts, I had the proof, I had the timelines. And Heather goes, oh, so it's not about it being the truth? And Monica goes, no, obviously it's the truth. And a dramatic, historic confrontation ensues, which again, you just have to see in full to appreciate. So here you go. Well, I have side-eye Meredith. I really don't have that many unsolved mysteries, burning questions about you. I do, however, have a few questions about Monica. An unsolved mystery, if you will. Well, the mystery for me with Monica is, who is the real Monica? We bonded over being single moms of daughters, and we really had a great time. Lots of fun, you know, charming, funny, witty, smarter than people probably think. And I thought pretty much like an open book, truth teller. But I don't feel like that's who the real Monica is. The real Monica is someone who really doesn't want to be our friend, but wants to profit from our lives and our pain. I know who you really are. And who you really are is the cyberbully, internet troll, Reality Von Teese. Heather? You are Reality Von Teese.
No.
You are an internet troll. You are a cyberbully. You've been tweeting and undermining and bullying all of us for 4 years. You are Reality Von Teese. I have the facts to prove it. And I have texts from your phone number. You saying, I am Reality Von Teese. I'm applying to be friends with these girls as Reality Von Teese. Do you want to see the receipts?
I would love to see it.
Yeah, you would love this. Oh my gosh, that's how you know I'm telling the truth. I have your perfect formula. Receipts, proof, timelines, screenshots, everything that proves that you are a f***ing bully and a f***ing troll, and you do not deserve to be at this table or anywhere near any of us for the way you've treated us. Every single one of us has woken up in fear for the shit that you posted.
That is bullshit. That was never my f***ing account.
You're done. You are Reality Von Teese. I know you're Reality Von Teese. That's not true entirely. What do you mean entirely? What does that mean entirely? It means part true. Oh my God. Disgusting. Lisa? It's disgusting. You think you can sit at our table and have us celebrate your birthday? I can't be by her.
You're not even listening to anything I say.
You infiltrated this friend group. You sought out Jen's
kidding?
show on
Are you
social
joking?
media.
That
and
is
then
not
you
what
worked
happened
for
at
her
all.
as a blonde named Monica Fowler. Then you got caught on security footage in Meredith's store when stole the clutch. That wasn't me. I didn't steal shit. That is you, and you're blonde, and you have a different name. What are you talking about?
You were in my store, Monica. It is on my security footage.
I didn't say I wasn't in your store. I didn't steal from you.
I'm not accusing you of stealing, but you said this is the first time I have been here.
You're a fraud. You're a liar and a fraud.
Okay, Heather.
And you were doing drive-bys by Jen's
you serious
house.
right
You
now?
used to do drive-bys. Jen's
What?
house.
I don't have to do drive-bys when I was with her all the time, you dumb.
I don't want to hear your mouth again. Don't call me a dumb.
Well, listen to it, you dumb fucking because you don't get to tell me to be quiet,
call
you
me a
fucking
dumb
piece.
Your ass just got caught running a cyberbully account while you're working
Go calm down.
felon.
You're a fucking dumb. You're a dumb. Shut the fuck up.
Monica, the bottom line is, what are we supposed to believe right now? Because you trolled every
You can
single
believe whatever
one of
that
us.
you want. I did not troll any of you.
Yes,
you guys
you
are not
did.
listening. I've never talked about you. None of that. None of that. None of that. Angie,
talk about
watch your fucking self.
Yourself. You've done so much dirty No one has called you out.
No, I'm not even kidding.
I'm
Angie,
not
let's talk
afraid
about
of
your
you.
involvement.
I'm not
Let's
afraid
talk
of
about
you.
your involvement. How you're involved. Want to talk about
I'm
how
not
you're
involved.
involved? Do you want to talk
What
about
are you
your
talking
involvement?
about?
How you're involved with Reality Von Teese? Sit the
I
f-
have
down and shut the
nothing.
f- up.
I have nothing to do with that f***ing account. How was I involved?
Laughing at your stories?
I didn't do
Don't
shit
talk
on
about
that page.
Go pay the IRS. Go f***ing pay the IRS.
I'm rich.
No, you're
My
not.
shit is current. My shit is f***ing current.
Go ahead, throw it. Throw it, you
I'll
classless
fucking
little.
shove it down your throat.
Go ahead and throw it. That's hilarious.
It's not hilarious.
No, it is because I'm being completely honest with you.
You're not being honest because you ran the troll account that attacked me for
I didn't
years.
do that, Whitney. I don't know what to tell you.
So if you played a part in it and you're part of the account, you know what it has said about me, about my family.
It wasn't ever my account. This was Tanisha's account.
Then why are you okay with your best friend doing that account and then sitting here with us? That's so f***ed up, Monica.
I did not start the account. It was Tanisha.
What did you do with that account? Why don't you tell us?
Tell us what you did with Reality Von Teese. I think that's a fair question since you bullied us for 4 years.
You just said that you partially ran the account, Monica.
Tell us what you did since you're a truth seeker. Honesty.
I didn't do
Monica!
What did you do with the account?
You need to own it right now. Okay. Some of the videos that I took of Jen that my told me to record, they were posted on there.
What, are you gonna video us and post it online whenever you're pissed at us?
that.
What are you talking about?
You are such a loser.
You are so stupid. You're so stupid.
Loser.
No, you, you dumb piece of old fucking pizza leather, rubbery Donald Trump. Shut the up.
I don't want someone around me that's gonna video me and post it online.
Don't abuse your employees then. You'll be just fine. Don't abuse your employees like your best friend Jen, and you'll be just fine.
That means that you have lied to me and you've used me.
I didn't lie to you. It's not worse than any of you have done about your dirty ass secrets.
There's no dark ass secrets. Clearly you're the one with the secret. You've been running an account that has bullied us for years.
Tanisha started the account. Ran the account. It was all these people. So you can go ahead and bring it on me all you want. I didn't say about anyone else other than Jen 100%. And I'll own it to the grave because that little is one of the worst humans I've ever met in my life. I don't think reality Von Teese was a bad thing. I think scamming people out of millions of dollars was a bad thing. But I think having a Instagram account to expose someone and their abuse is a bad thing. I think that's just telling the truth.
You have been lying to my face.
I have not been lying to your face, Whitney.
Yes, you have.
Monica! For 3 months you have sat with us and you have not told us the truth. Do you understand? It's about deception. You deceived
No, I didn't
all
deceive.
of us.
Guess what? I don't want you to stay in this house. You can leave.
You can leave.
Get the out. You can get her.
You get the out of
Get her
here.
out.
I don't think you understand something about this group. There's something that you missed out on. We are friends. We have been through this bullshit before with Jen. For years, we were afraid we'd wake up sick, that a lie would be posted and told and spread and exposed and exploited, but we were in it with her. And we are the type of girls that ride or die. And each one of us at different times rode hard and we shut down our feelings of doubt and things that didn't add up. Who you are made no sense, but the way you acted was strangely familiar. And the pain that we went through and the way that we were tormented and tortured, every day for her. I felt like I had to lie to protect her. I did whatever it took. I went on a book tour and defended her and took for the fact that she gave me a black eye.
What?
Whoa. Whoa.
Well, I'm glad you finally told the truth for once. So good for you. We're not gonna do it again with you. Pack your bags and go.
These women genuinely are pissed. Monica has to fly home on a separate flight. She is actually removed from the house the second that happens. Normally at BravoCon, like the annual convention they have for all of these shows, they will have a panel where all the Real Housewives will get up and answer questions before the season airs. Did not have a Salt Lake City panel before season 4, and Monica was visibly separated from the rest of the women. Everyone going into season 4 when it was airing knew that for some reason Monica was on the outs with the group and no one knew exactly what it was. The women were just so irate that they wouldn't have been able to promote the show without bringing this issue up. Because of that, they also filmed the reunion way earlier than they normally do. So normally for Real Housewives reunions, the full season will air except for maybe like the last 2 episodes. Then they'll film the reunion, and the reunion is filled with fan questions that Andy will then read out to them. But this time they filmed it earlier without any audience input, and it was just all of the women questioning Monica and what has gone on, which creates a very interesting dynamic because the fan reaction to reality Von Teese, I do think, is very different from how especially Heather perceives the situation. And I think the reunion would have looked very different if it had been filmed as they normally film it. So the reunion does not go well for Monica. First of all, before season 4 airs and as it continues to air, the Reality Von Teese Twitter account starts posting again. I'm not clear if Reality Von Teese Twitter is officially linked to the Instagram or officially linked to Monica, but the Reality Von Teese account starts posting kind of mean things about some of the other women, including Heather, including Meredith, and saying, oh my God, isn't Monica like the best person ever, blah, 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 blah. Monica at the reunion is insistent that the Reality Von Teese account, or her posting for the Reality Von Teese account, never said anything negative about the other women, just reposting horrible things that Jen said about the women. This screenshot does show up at the reunion. I don't know if it's Reality Von Teese that posted this, because I looked and this isn't available on the Instagram. If it was on Reality Von Teese, it's not publicly available anymore, but this seems to be accusing Heather of racism from the Reality Von Teese account. Obviously, there's these Twitter posts that are not nice, but again, we don't know for sure if they're coming from Monica. But Monica really wants to prove that not only was the account only mean towards Jen, but that the other women loved the account, knew about the account, and knew that she was Reality Von Teese the whole time and actually had nothing to be upset about. Monica brings out the burn book. She did spend the entire night scrapbooking before the reunion, and that labor really was not appreciated, because the second that Monica pulls out that burn book, the reaction in the room is just, oh, that's not. Because the thing is, these women are accusing her of cyberbullying and stalking and basically obsessing with getting onto the show and being amongst them so that she can run this gossip account that harasses them. Her response is just it's a little too cheeky, haha, or the level of accusation that they're leveling at her. None of the women are on Monica's side in this conversation. Mary does briefly make an appearance at the reunion, and she's like, honestly, I don't know what the big deal is. But Mary is also not a main cast member, so she's not on this couch with anybody. The receipts that they show at the reunion certainly do not make Monica look good. The show posts videos of Monica actually driving by Jen's house with binoculars, whispering and spying on her in a way that really genuinely does seem creepy. When asked about the drive-bys and why she was doing the drive-bys, Monica says that the FBI asked her to do it. And Monica explains, yeah, like we were going to catch her drinking and driving, like violating her parole. Jen would be in her own house, so she wouldn't be drinking and driving. She'd be at her own house. Obviously, the FBI would not need to ask someone like Monica to do drive-bys of Jen's house for them. Like, that just seems objectively not true. The women accuse Monica of looking through Jen's security cameras, and actually, Lisa believes that that's how Monica heard the story about the private jet with Snoop Dogg. Lisa remembers having that conversation with Jen, and she believes that Monica was eavesdropping on that conversation, which Monica denies. Monica also gets caught in some very obvious and honestly not important lies. Heather says, Monica, were you just Jen's assistant so that you could get on this show, and just like Kim Kardashian was an assistant, you were going to be an assistant? And Monica's like, no, that's not true. Heather then proceeds to pull out an audio recording of Monica basically saying that exact thing. Does it really matter at the end of the day whether Monica was trying to get on the show? Like, no, but it's just like a weird thing to get caught in a lie about. I also forgot to mention at the reunion, they bring up how Monica at the Easter party at Angie's house, I guess after that big argument, she fell down the stairs and was threatening to sue Angie because she didn't have a handrail on her stairs. And Angie's like, what were you going to sue me for? Because production paid for all of your medical expenses. Like, what are you actually talking about? Just another thing that doesn't make Monica look the most credible in this reunion. Monica also at the reunion accuses production of knowing the whole time that she was Reality Von Teese, which Andy really does not like. I think that was probably one of the moments that really got her kicked off of the show from that point onward. Monica does not look good at this reunion. But that is not the end of the story. Monica does what any reality TV villain does when they feel like they didn't get a favorable edit. She goes on the Nick Viall podcast and explains her side of the story. And I think generally speaking, she comes across a lot more sympathetic and understandable than she did at the reunion or on the show. According to Monica, she made the account with several different people who had been wronged by Jen, specifically to expose how Jen was abusing her employees. She mentioned specifically that Heather Gay's hairstylist, Tanisha, was the one who originally made the account, and Heather would have known about the account because Tanisha was her hairstylist. Monica says that the reason she didn't come out with Reality Von Teese at the beginning of the season was because she genuinely didn't think that it was a secret to any of the women or that any of the women actually cared. She said that she could understand to an extent why they maybe had misgivings or didn't trust her, but she still stood by that she didn't believe that she had actually done anything wrong to any of the women besides Jen. She does admit that she thinks that she overstepped boundaries, and if she could do it again, she wouldn't have made a burner account exposing Jen because Jen was kind of going down on her own. The most damning evidence that Monica has that the other women did know she was Reality Von Teese was in, I believe, 2021. Jen sent a cease and desist to all of the people who were running Reality Von Teese, just on a guess, really, that they were behind Reality Von Teese, being like, stop posting stuff. And Monica is like, well, if they were such good friends, wouldn't they have known about the cease and desist? The Reality Von Teese Twitter account also posts receipts of what appears to be Heather communicating with Koa about the recording before it was leaked to the public, which this text doesn't explicitly prove to me that she knew about Reality Von Teese or who was behind Reality Von Teese, but it does paint the picture that Heather was probably more okay with this information about Jen getting out there than she let on during the show. Monica explains that the reason this whole thing went south was because once she got cast on the show, Tanisha, for reasons she cannot quite explain, turned on her. Basically took all of the screenshots and recordings she had been gathering of Monica and sent them to Heather specifically to make Monica look bad and get Monica kicked off the show. She believed Heather also wanted to be a part of getting Monica kicked off the show because she still had some alliance or allegiance to Jen, even though she denied that. There was this very strange Watch What Happens Live interview where Heather talks about Reality Von Teese, and she does specifically say that she hopes Jen is happy with what she did.
Hope she's glad that we at least, uprooted Monica, who had really been after her the entire time.
To expand on the criticism of Heather, particularly in this moment, a lot of people have said that this scene feels incredibly rehearsed, which absolutely, yes. At a minimum, Heather was repeating her whole monologue to herself over and over again for hours before this confrontation, right? Which doesn't necessarily mean that it's fake, but it's certainly pre-planned. But I think the larger criticism is because people don't think Heather was in good standing with production at the time, they believe that even though Heather didn't think Reality Von Teese was a big deal, she made it a big deal intentionally in this finale so that she could give herself the best finale of all time at Monica's expense, which, maybe. To be fair, I think a lot of things are happening in this moment that we'll never fully have answers to. But I also think it's fair to say that a lot of what's going on in this scene and in the reunion, I would say there's quite a bit of projection happening here. I think in a way, Monica became the placeholder for Jen and a lot of their anger towards Jen because these women would never be able to speak this way to Jen. They just wouldn't. They were terrified of her. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. And I think part of the reason they're having this reaction to Monica that they didn't have to Jen, who was scamming a lot of people, is that what Monica was doing was a direct threat to them, whereas they could kind of compartmentalize Jen's abhorrent behavior in some sort of way. The story with Monica and Tanisha is really what I want to know happened, because then Tanisha and Monica both accuse each other of stalking one another. They record each other in like a high-speed chase going around Tanisha's neighborhood later on. Something happened between these two and we really don't know what it's all about, but Monica emphasizes that clearly Heather isn't so bothered about the account because she still used Tanisha as her stylist even for the season 4 reunion after she knew for sure that Tanisha was tied to Reality Von Teese. So a lot of what Tanisha has said about this whole situation is kind of lost to time, but there was a video that she posted that got reposted to Reddit briefly where she says that Monica was basically a habitual liar. She would lie about things like getting into a car accident or things related to her family, and that Monica is not a trustworthy person. Monica and Tanisha both accuse one another of being the main leaders behind Reality Von Teese, when I think it seems pretty evident that they were both involved to some extent that they don't really like to admit. Tanisha's role in all of this is very strange. There's a lot of unanswered questions there. And Heather Gay does very briefly give her side of the story in the last chapter of her second book, Good Time Girl. I did in fact have to read this whole thing. The version that Heather tells of Monica getting onto the show, it seems like she's going off of information from the production investigation that happened afterwards. She doesn't say that explicitly, and even though the chapter is called Receipts Proof Timeline, there are no screenshots, there are no receipts. We're kind of just assuming that what Heather is telling us is the truth in this chapter. She says that Monica met Jen because Monica's husband was hired to do a job for Jen, and Monica just showed up at the house with her husband, became friends with Jen that way. Heather says that Jen felt bad for Monica and specifically Monica's kids and would help Monica out financially by helping with car payments and things like that because Monica would call her crying and upset not being able to pay these things. And that's why Monica and Jen had this working relationship, which eventually fell apart when Jen realized that Monica was looking through Jen's security footage because Monica was the one who got the security cameras set up for Jen, was the one who suggested them in the first place. Heather paints Monica as someone who was intentionally deceptive and a ladder climber for the purposes of her getting onto the show. When Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is announced, Heather claims that Monica DM'd all of the housewives, like inquired about being an ambassador for Whitney's brand, messaged Lisa about Vida Tequila, became a client at Heather's med spa, and the only way that Monica was able to get her in was through Jen. Heather claims that Monica reached out to Jen's husband Sharif after her and Jen stopped having a relationship, where they met in a parking lot. And according to Monica, Sharif tried to kiss her, but she pushed him off. When the Shaws seemingly realize that the leaks are coming from their own security footage, they try and change the password. And according to Heather, Monica in the group chat laments that she would be cut off from the cameras. Heather also says that Monica reached out directly to the investigators assigned to Jen's case, offered her testimony, kept emailing the investigators with every piece of information she had, to the point that the investigators eventually said, "Please stop talking to us." She said that Monica, after Jen's arrest, arranged for her and Jen to have drinks one night, and that she later wanted to report that to the investigators. Seemingly, she was intentionally trying to set Jen up in some way, which, you know, Jen is still an adult who made her own choices in that. Heather also mentions, but does not name, other burner accounts that she believes that Monica is linked to. She says that she has a friend at Meta who was able to verify this independently, but again, she is really vague about it. But she says that these other troll accounts called the other women, like Whitney Trash Bucket, Meredith the Fakest on the cast, like was much more explicitly mean to the other women on these other burner accounts that are not reality Vontees. I'm surprised that this accusation in particular is just buried in the last chapter of her book and not emphasized more on the show, because this does seem like the much more critical, damning thing as to why Heather is specifically uncomfortable with having Monica on the cast. Yeah, if someone is making anonymous burner accounts harassing you, like you don't want that person to work with you. Part of what made Heather initially suspicious of Monica is she went to get a gift card for Monica for her business, Beauty Lab and Laser, and she discovered that there were 4 different Monicas in the client list of Beauty Lab and Laser, all with different last names, and one of them owed just around $2,000 for unpaid treatments. This would have been a few years before Monica was even cast on the show. Strictly in my opinion, not in any sort of legal capacity, Heather does seem to follow through on this lawsuit just before the statute of limitations come up, just a little bit out of spite. She certainly does not have a high opinion of Monica at this point, like that doesn't help anything, but she is seeking to recover not only the unpaid funds from Monica, but also the interest that would have been garnered in between that time. Monica then countersues. According to Monica, the reason that she did not pay the full amount for the lip injections that she got was because the filler that she got was botched and she needed to get it fixed at another location. And she called Beauty Lab and Laser, according to her, and was like, "Hey, my lips look busted." And they were like, "Okay, you won't have to pay the full amount. You just have to go get them fixed somewhere else. Like, we're not going to collect the rest of the $2,000. Monica does not have any receipts of that happening because it was a phone call. But Heather in the legal proceedings seems to dispute that with Instagram DMs between Monica and the lip injector, which it seems like Monica is very pleased with the lip injections that she got. At least she doesn't vocalize it to the lip injector, and in fact speaks positively about him multiple times over the next couple of months. Legally though, this really isn't particularly relevant. The fact of the matter is Beauty Lab and Laser had a contract that said individual results aren't guaranteed. You still have to pay us even if you don't think that the treatments worked out. If Monica wanted to allege medical malpractice, basically, that the lip injections were done poorly, she would have had to go through an administrative process with a board that handles med spa licensing and stuff before she could have countersued Heather. Plus, the court ruled that the statute of limitations had passed for Monica's countersuit. Basically, the legal arguments just kind of come down to Beauty Lab and Laser had a contract and Monica was bound by that contract. None of Monica's arguments to void that contract work out. There is a final judgment against Monica in the amount of $35,853.60, which is a lot of money. Monica's attorneys did appeal this decision. It was only just last month, I think, that the appellate court rejected Monica's appeal. Again, for boring reasons, they basically argued that Monica's defense team had not raised the issue they were trying to appeal at trial court, and because they didn't discuss it in the lower court, they can't review it in the appellate court. Basically, Monica's countersuit is not successful, and it seems as though, as of right now, she owes Heather Gay a lot of money. So now that you have an idea of what's all gone on, and it's been several years since this episode aired, there's been a lot of questions about what really happened here beyond the very dramatized version that we get on the show. Not only does Heather Gay have this very dramatic moment in this scene in Bermuda at the reunion, but even in the years afterwards, she has still held a pretty high level of anger towards Monica. As much as people like to make it all a Heather Gay problem, it is not just limited to Heather Gay. Several women on this cast have expressed an ongoing vitriol for Monica. They still go as far to say that not only is Monica a new Jen, a Jen 2.0, but that Monica is someone worse than Jen, that they would rather be in a room with Jen than Monica. From any sort of outward perspective seems just inherently ridiculous because Jen Shah, up until about a month ago, was in prison for defrauding elderly people. There is tangible evidence that she has significantly harmed a large number of people in ways that cannot be undone. Monica, at the end of the day, she created a finsta. To even begin to compare the two just seems on its face offensive because of that, and also because I think of a growing resentment towards Heather Gay as a cast member in recent years. There has been this movement within the Real Housewives fandom to re-examine this and say, actually, maybe Monica is the secret hero of this story, who was wrongfully set up by production and ultimately by Heather Gay, the all-powerful Heather Gay. I know there's also a lot of speculation that production must have known that Monica was involved with Reality Fontees, and Monica did say in some interviews that the initial casting team she spoke to did. That wouldn't necessarily have been the production that was filming with her. Production has vehemently denied that they had any knowledge of this, and probably controversial opinion, I tend to believe them because I think that Bravo production is generally very disinterested in what someone is doing on social media. Let's be honest, Bravo is probably doing background checks as far as making sure they don't have restraining orders or criminal history, briefly glancing at their social media to see that they don't have anything controversial up on there, but even then they don't do that half the time. I just don't think that Bravo's background checks is as thorough as people give it credit for, and I just don't think that an account with 5,000 followers would have been on Bravo's radar when they were doing the background check. On a basic level, I agree that the comparisons between Jen and Monica seem really unfair and unfounded. Like, yes, they both lied, but a lot of people lie. All of them have lied. Heather herself admitted to lying for many months about the black eye incident, and I don't think anyone would compare her to Jen Shah for doing that. I don't think we'll ever really know the extent of Monica's involvement in Reality Fontees. Like, yes, she was involved, but it does seem at this point that there were other people involved, and who knows whose idea it was to create the count, which individual posts were hers. And I do think that that works in Monica's favor, because even the posts on Reality Fontees that weren't particularly kind to the other women, the women can't prove or say for sure that that was actually Monica who did them. And Monica has stayed by the notion that she only ever posted negative stuff about Jen. She specifically said that the recording she made of Jen allegedly abusing some of her employees, that she was directly responsible for those getting put on the account. But I think that's the only specific thing that she has admitted to. I think that this account did provide a meaningful and important platform to those employees who, in my opinion, it seems were genuinely harmed by Jen's actions, and I think had reason to believe that if they posted these things with their faces attached to them, that Jen would come after them in some way. I do think the account served its purpose in highlighting the egregiously offensive and wrong things Jen may have been doing behind the scenes, not just harming her employees, although that would have been bad enough, but also speaking in very hateful, transphobic ways about her fellow castmates, which who knows if Heather would have found out that Jen was calling her the T-slur behind her back if this account had not existed. And one of the moments that went really unappreciated, I think, during the reunion was when Monica spoke about her and Heather both being victims of Jen's abuse in some sort of way. And Monica has heavily implied that Jen was physical with her, like throwing food and other items at her. And Heather has, of course, said that Jen was the one who gave her the black eye. I think a lot of people forget that it wasn't just a black eye. She was covered in scratches as well. And we still don't really know the context of how that happened. I don't even know if Heather really has a clear memory of that. But I don't think it's controversial to say that they were both mistreated. This account on a broad level was showing that. And I think Monica is also right that this wasn't Dumois. It wasn't a huge account in the atmosphere either. I do find it hard to believe that the impact of this specific account was maybe as broad as Heather and the other women say, but I do think that the size of the account, the overall account being focused on Jen, does leave out some less positive context. The account that's public now is Reality Von Teese 2. The original Reality Von Teese account doesn't exist anymore. Heather briefly mentioned during the reunion that it was taken down for cyberbullying. Again, this feels like one of those things that we'll just kind of never be able to prove. We don't really know how that original account spoke about the other women besides Jen. If I were Monica and I had an anonymous account that spoke about what would have been my coworkers, I would have deleted anything that was particularly damning against them if I went on the show. And because this was a relatively small account, it wouldn't have been on anyone's radar that Reality Von Teese 2 was deleting old posts that were disparaging against some of the other people. There are screenshots pulled up at the reunion where I do not recognize where it came from. I looked through all of the Reality Von Teese archive and couldn't match it up. So I do think it's possible that stuff was deleted. There is also stuff that is up now that I wouldn't say is like hateful towards the women, but isn't positive towards them either. I also found a lot of old archive stories that just had nothing to do with Jen and felt more like it was just a traditional gossip account, speculation on who a new housewife could be, criticism of the show. I do think it's dishonest to say that Reality Von Teese just existed to expose the mistreatment of Jen's employees. I think it morphed into something a lot more like a traditional gossip account, and having just a gossip blogger in your cast with you, I can see how that would have made some of the women uncomfortable, because for all they knew, they didn't really know Monica before this season. What if they did something that upset her and then were recorded, or there were things leaked onto this account? I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but I just do think that the women had a right to be a little bit creeped out by Monica. Jen is not a sympathetic victim in this situation. I can understand why Monica felt harmed, why she felt maybe caught up in a moment and went in too deep. But if I was working with someone and I learned that they had looked into someone else's security footage and uploaded it publicly, that they were doing drive-bys of someone's house, began working at the place that that person they spied on worked at before, I would have some reservations about that. And they also had screenshots of Monica in text messages asking for Heather's address so that she could drive by Heather's house. I think for the women who did not know Monica really before the season started, for all they knew, Monica could start a burner account and do the same things to them. They had just dealt with that situation where they were DMs they thought were coming from Meredith. And it's never confirmed. Monica has always denied that it was her sending those DMs. But I think those women aren't crazy for thinking that Monica maybe had something to do with that, even if she didn't. Monica would just not seem like a trustworthy person to them. Not to mention, Reality Von Teese had been tagging every single one of these women basically in almost every single post that they made. These women spoke about getting notifications daily from this account. And even if the account wasn't directly attacking them, I think it was natural for there to be some resentment building up that they were constantly getting notified from this account and getting reminded of, for example, horrific things that Jen had said about them. Monica has said that it wasn't a secret that she was Reality Von Teese, that she didn't think it was a big deal. She implies that if she was asked about it directly, she would have been upfront. And I just don't know if I fully believe her on that. One of the things that really gave me pause is there's a podcast called The Bravo Docket, which if you haven't listened to, it's right up my alley. It is two lawyers who go through all of the legal drama that is always going on in the Bravo universe. They break down legal cases so that people can understand them. Because of Jen Shah's trial kind of being one of the biggest scale Bravo crimes, they spoke very often about Jen Shah and her case. And they specifically said that they remember the Reality Von Teese account tagging them daily in posts. Usually it would just be screen caps of the Bravo Docket content sent back to to them. And they said that they had to mute notifications from the Reality Von Teese account because they themselves began to get irritated with the amount of notifications they were receiving. And again, none of the vitriol was directed at Bravo Docket, but it was enough to irritate them. They also mentioned that Reality Von Teese messaged them in DMs asking about Jen's trial getting pushed back and just generally trying to get some sort of information from Bravo Docket. The women on Bravo Docket said that they sensed that there was some level of personal vitriol from this account that went beyond other Bravo gossip accounts. They mentioned meeting Monica at BravoCon before the Reality Von Teese drama was revealed to the public. I think the weirdest detail to me is they meet Monica. Monica at that time acts as though she does not know who Bravo Docket is. Now, to give Monica the benefit of the doubt, it does seem like there were multiple people involved with Reality Von Teese, so maybe at that point she had no awareness of Bravo Docket, but that story just makes me wonder if Monica was trying to be more intentional about separating herself from Reality Von Teese than maybe she lets on. Combined with the fact that when confronted by Heather Gay, she does sort of initially deny it or downplay her role in all of it. I don't think Monica is some evil, fraudulent person that is unredeemable, but I do understand, especially when all of this was so fresh and just happening, why the other women wouldn't want to have a working relationship with her at that point. Like, I don't think that that's actually so crazy of them to feel that way. The existence of Reality Von Teese and the prominence of Reality Von Teese really does speak to a shift in Real Housewives. For many years, Bravo was able to create this very tight universe within itself that fans would get information. There's the official Bravo blogs where Real Housewives would write up their reactions to episodes after they aired, and that content may be referenced in the reunion, thus encouraging you to read those blogs. Then there's the after shows, Watch What Happens Live, Bravo sanctioned podcasts. Bravo, every time you're engaging with this external content, is getting a piece of that pie. And for many, many years, it tried to keep a tight latch on that and sort of distance itself from the social media role. If you've watched Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, you'll know that that show is so centered around what the women post on social media, mostly because those women are also primarily influencers, and that's the motivation for a lot of drama on the show. That is not the case with Real Housewives, and in fact, they try to limit references to social media as much as possible. So Bravo's pivot to not only focus and air this moment, but make it one of the most iconic moments in the series, probably in all of the Real Housewives universe. It does speak to a very interesting shift in Bravo, where it no longer can ignore the relationship that exists between gossip accounts and various housewives. I think a lot how celebrity Asians have working relationships with the press, where they occasionally leak information selectively to their benefit. I think that has slowly, with the existence of gossip accounts, become another silent thing that exists among the housewives, which if you have one housewife who is leaking things to the blogs or press, that can be very detrimental to the other housewives who don't have that same control over the narrative. And so in the past seasons of Salt Lake City, even after Monica is gone, you've seen they are paranoid about the other housewives potentially having involvement with Reddit or gossip accounts. There's a moment where Whitney is convinced that Meredith leaked the information that her jewelry is possibly a ripoff of Alibaba jewelry. I think anybody on Reddit could have put that information together. You don't need a leak for that. And also, if it's not true, Whitney, then why would it be a leak? Like that, none of that makes sense. There's a moment where Brittany, one of the new cast members, is caught recording a conversation on a Sprinter bus, and all of the women hone in on her like it is just a bloodbath.
You're recording us? She recorded it.
We are talking about something I said that's so private.
And then in season 6, they reportedly had to stop showing the women episodes before it aired because they were that concerned about leaks being made out to the press. And that's a major storyline in season 6, whether Lisa is leaking things out to Bravo accounts and the press. Once you acknowledge social media, it's kind of impossible to block it out as a storyline on the show. Acknowledging this working relationship between gossip accounts and Real Housewives has only served to really show the theater element of all of this, that this is a job that the women are paid to do, where they are acting to some degree for the cameras and then operating in a different way behind the scenes. And I don't know if that makes the shows better or worse, but it certainly makes it different. As for Monica today, as far as I'm aware, she no longer has a relationship with her mother, seemingly because of the fallout from the show, which is genuinely sad to hear for her and her kids, but also it seems like they had a very toxic and unhealthy relationship for many years prior to this. So I hope that divide at least serves Monica personally. She has a new relationship, another child, and I do genuinely hope that Monica is doing well. She has very unsubtly expressed interest in returning to Real Housewives for season 7 on multiple occasions over these past few months. I would not be surprised if the other women besides Heather have forgiven Monica. Certainly on the scale of things that other housewives have done, what Monica has done, I think on any other franchise wouldn't have been enough to get her kicked off the show completely. Personally, at this point with the current cast of Salt Lake City, I just don't know where Monica would fit in or if the payoff of her coming back would be what people wanted it to be. But as far as other reality TV, even Real Housewives franchises, I don't see why not. She did return for House of Villains. She's clearly someone that people like to watch, and she did give us one of the most iconic moments in reality TV. It does seem kind of crazy to me that she is just sitting on the sidelines right now. Honestly, I doubt that we've seen the last of Monica Garcia. That is the story of Reality Von Teese. I hope y'all found this interesting, found it fascinating. I certainly did. If you want to see more from me, I stream on Twitch a few times a week and upload the VODs of that to my second channel. I also make a monthly bonus video over on Patreon for those who support me over there. And if you're not interested in any of that, that's cool. I get it. That's fine. But if you liked this video, you could feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.